yet to come.
And a lot of us are like that. We're looking for the answer outside of ourselves when the answer lies within.
Maximum performance is the holy grail of modern business. Everyone wants to encourage achievement, to increase sales, expand creativity, improve customer service, create opportunity, both personally and professionally, to redefine work and life around success. Yet many people are unable to master the proven self-empowerment tools and time-tested performance strategies that are the basis for outstanding achievement. These principles have been closely guarded secrets of the world's greatest achievers until now. Jack Canfield, America's success coach, taking you from where you are to where you want to be.
And we were ecstatic. We thought, wow, we're going to have our dream finally come true. It had taken over a year to get that book sold. And we said to the publisher, how many copies do you think you'll sell? He said, oh, we'll be lucky to sell 20,000 copies. We said, that's not our dream. Our dream is 150,000 copies by Christmas, because this was July when it came out, and 1.5 million, 1.5 million books by the end of the year, so a year and a half. Now, have you ever shared your dream with someone, like when you said, I'm going to become a party-like consultant, and had someone actually laugh out loud at you? Yeah. Well, our publisher laughed out loud at us. He said, that's impossible. Well, we did sell 135,000 by Christmas and 1.3 million within a year and a half. And that book went on to sell 8.5 million copies in America and 10 million copies around the world, and spawned this series that we now have called Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Jack Canfield is an internationally recognized leader in personal development and peak performance strategies. Jack created the definitive method to help people create breakthrough results in everything they do. Jack Canfield is the man behind the empire Time magazine called the publishing phenomenon of the decade. As the originator of the New York Times #1 best-selling book series, Chicken Soup for the Soul, he created a literary genre that has grown into a billion-dollar market. Jack has appeared on more than 800 media outlets, including Oprah, 2020, Inside Edition, The Today Show, Fox and Friends, NBC Nightly News, and countless syndicated radio programs. He's been featured in various nationally recognized magazines and publications, and his syndicated column is read in over 150 newspapers worldwide. As CEO of Chicken Soup for the Soul Enterprises, his brand has a global reach. With over 100 million books sold, Jack Canfield is uniquely qualified to talk about success. His newest book, The Success Principles, How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be, contains dozens of the most powerful secrets to success used by top achievers from all walks of life. Jack Canfield, America's success coach, taking you from where you are to where you want to be.
And without maximum confidence, you can't succeed. It's like poker chips. Here we are in Las Vegas. If you go where they play poker, been watching these celebrity poker games on TV, and everyone starts and they have money, and then some people lose, and eventually somebody wins like $1 million, right? But you have to have chips in order to play. And what happens is your self-esteem, your confidence is like poker chips, and some of you have big stacks. You just try anything, because if you lose, big deal. It's like we're playing poker. How many of you have ever driven your car with the emergency brake on? Can I see a show of hands? Do you do what I used to do, which is just push harder on the gas to overcome the drag on the brake? No, what we do is we release the brake and the car goes faster with no additional gas or effort. And that's really what I see, the kind of work I do, which is we remove the block so the natural essence of who you are comes forward without effort. In fact, it gets easier. And too often we're working outside instead of inside. There's an old story of a man looking for a key under a street lamp, and someone comes and says, what are you doing? He said, I'm looking for my key. I lost it. He says, well, I'll help you. And he gets down on the ground there looking and looking and looking, and all of a sudden the guy says, man, we've been looking for half an hour. I don't see the key. You sure you lost it here? He said, oh, no, I lost it in my house, but there's more light out here under the street lamp. And a lot of us are like that. We're looking for the answer outside of ourselves when the answer lies within. Can I see by a show of hands how many of you have read a Chicken Soup for the Soul book? Wow. Isn't that amazing? One of the things we did at the end of that first book, we said, if you have a story, send it in. Maybe we'll do a sequel. We had no idea that we would end up doing 101 books, but people like you send in stories. We started getting 300 to 500 stories a day, and literally out of that grew this series of 101 books. And then we did a book called Chicken Soup for the Dental Soul. Can you imagine? All stories that take place in dental offices. And again, a different mother, a different daughter, they go to the dentist. She just lost her first tooth. And the dentist looks at this little 6-year-old and says, I see you've lost your first tooth. She says, uh-huh. Did you put it under the pillow for the tooth fairy? She said, uh-huh. Did the tooth fairy come? She said, uh-huh. Did she leave you any money? She said, uh-huh. How much? She said, $2. She said, wow, that's a lot of money for a little girl. When I was a kid, the tooth fairy only left like maybe a dime or a quarter. She said, I know. And she said, I know something else too. She said, what's that? She said, I know what the tooth fairy looks like. She said, get out of here. I've been a dentist for 30 years. I've never seen a tooth fairy. Tell me, what does the tooth fairy look like? She said, just like my mama. Only naked.
For more than 30 years, Jack Canfield has studied and reported on what makes successful people different. He knows what motivates them, what drives them, and what inspires them. And he brings this critical insight to your organization in a way that is immediately relevant. Jack knows how to accelerate the personal achievement and life fulfillment of organizations and individuals everywhere. Industries from healthcare, Fortune 500 companies, direct sales, real estate, higher education, and many more have been inspired and enhanced by Jack's powerful message. Jack Canfield, America's Success Coach, taking you from where you are to where you want to be.
When I wrote the book, The Success Principles, there are 64 principles in that book, and I think they're all really critical to having the kind of success that most people say they want. However, obviously, if I'm doing a 1-hour keynote, I can't cover all 64 principles. Usually take about 7 or 8 of them, what I consider the most core principles, things like take 100% responsibility for your life and your results. Be clear about what it is you want in your life. Decide what you want, set clear goals. Events plus responses equal outcomes. And if you don't get the outcomes you want, called health, wealth, abundance, great relationships, you're happy, you're loving, you're enthusiastic, you feel good, you're alive, everything's working in your life, it's because you haven't responded correctly to the events that have occurred up until that time. Someone puts a cake in front of you, that's an event. You eat it, that's a response. You put on a few calories and a few extra pounds, that's the outcome. And if you don't like that outcome, you have to go back and change your response because the events are going to keep happening. There's a friend of mine named Dr. Ignatius Piazza that I wrote about in my book, The Success Principles. And he moved to Monterey, California. And he went to the local chiropractic association. He said, would you help me open my office? And they said, no, we really don't want to help you. He said, why not? He said, because we have too many chiropractors here already. And he knocked on doors, going up one block, down the other, up one block, down the other, up one block, and down the other. He knocked on over 12,500 doors. And in that time, over 6,500 people were home, and he talked to them. Then he said, should I have my office open from 7 till 9 in the morning or from 5 until 7 in the evening for people who have a 9-to-5 job? Which would be better? And he said, if I have an open house, would you like to receive an invitation to come? And if they said yes, he wrote their name and address down. Now, 6 months later, he had that open house, and literally thousands of people came. They had a circus tent outside in this big parking lot for his open house. In his first month in practice in a town that did not need another chiropractor, he made $72,000. First month in practice.
When you hire Jack Canfield to present to your audience, you get more than just a speaker. You get an energetic, motivating, witty, exciting performance that inspires attendees to action. Not only will your audience be inspired and motivated to achieve greater success, they'll learn to up-level their efforts, associations, relationships, attitudes, and behaviors. Jack Canfield, America's Success Coach, taking you from where you are to where you want to be.
If we take 64 principles of success, most people are doing some of them. but there's areas where they're not. And once we've assessed what those are, we can design a training program or a training of trainers program to fill in the blanks so that they have the whole package. Whatever it is that you're currently producing, you can produce more. But you have to do something different than what you're currently doing. And the basic principles are very simple. You have to decide what it is you want. You have to believe that you have the ability to make it happen. Then you have to be willing to ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice in terms of time, effort, resources, money, etc., in order to achieve those goals? What skills do I need that I don't have? What resources do I need that I don't have? What support systems do I need that I don't have? And how can I bring those into my life? I was talking to a company. It was a company that makes eyeglass lenses. They own 50% of the market of eyeglass lenses in the United States. And I was the first outside speaker that ever brought to one of their conferences. And I golfed with some of the people earlier that day. And I asked them, I said, how many of you know who the top salespeople in the company are? And everyone knew. There were 5 people, and they all knew their names. And that night I gave my talk. And I asked, how many of you know who the top 5 people in the company are? And everybody knew. And then I said, how many of you have ever gone up to any of those people and asked them what they do differently than you so that you could achieve at the level they're achieving at? And you know, not one hand in that room went up. Everybody knew who had the information. Everybody knew who had the secret that could help them go to the next level. But they were afraid of that word rejection. Because I asked them, why didn't you ask? They said, well, why would they tell me? And what I found in life is if you ask people to support you, 9 times out of 10 they will. There'll be that one person who says no, but there's always people that will support you. And you are literally living in the midst of a family of people that are some of the most supportive, nurturing, caring, educational, coaching people you're ever going to meet in your life. It's true. The cool thing about a GPS system, you get in the car and you type in a destination, and all of a sudden it goes, and shows you the path. It doesn't ask you, I love this. It doesn't say, what are you doing stuck in LA? It doesn't say, why do you want to go to Santa Barbara? It doesn't say you shouldn't want to go to Santa Barbara. You know, you should go to Chicago. It doesn't ask you any of those things. It just plots a map, just plots a route. And here's the cool thing. Each one of you has an inner GPS system. It's in your brain. It's called your subconscious. But it will not plot the route until you give it a destination. The wave's coming. You have to get ahead of it, build momentum, and then you get the momentum of the wave. You're in it. It's moving you now. You stand up on it. You get this incredible ride. And life is the same way. There are all kinds of opportunities that are going to come to you for your practice, for your life, for your financial health and wealth, etc. And the reality is, if you're not ahead of the wave, if you haven't built up momentum inside of yourself, you can't catch that wave. When we do evaluations of my speeches and my seminars, on a scale of 1 to 10, we usually average over a 10. People grade it 10 plus, 10.5, 20, etc. The only 9 I've ever gotten was by a guy who said, I never give human beings a 10. I think only God's perfect. But I give you a 9 because you're really close. And the other thing that we get constantly over and over is, I wish we'd given Jack more time, bring him back next year. This guy was amazing. Where have you been hiding him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have any concerns about bringing me in as a speaker, I can tell you, you will look like a champion to your people, and your people will walk out like champions at the end of the talk, and your whole organization is just going to go to another level. How can I promise that? Because we've done it year after year after year with hundreds of organizations every year. Woman calls her minister, and she says, Reverend, I've got a problem. She said, I just came back from the hospital, and I was told I have terminal cancer, and that I'm going to not live longer than 3 months at the max. And she said, you know, I don't want you to try to comfort me. I've lived a long life. I'm 83 years old. I'm very happy. But what I do want is this. I want to plan my own funeral. And she said, I want this hymn sung. I want this psalm read. I want this poem put on a card, for a memorial card for everybody. And she said, I'd like these kinds of flowers. And I want an open casket. I'd like to be dressed in this dress. She showed him a dress. And she said, finally, I'd like to be buried with my Bible in my left hand and a fork in my right hand. And Reverend Jim said, well, Aunt Hattie, I understand the Bible. You're a very spiritual person, but why the fork? I don't understand it. She said, you know, whenever we have one of those big church socials, and we're down in the basement, and they come by to servers, and whenever there's going to be a really good dessert, not like Jell-O or pudding, but something really good like chocolate cake or apple pie or cherry cobbler, when they're clearing your plate, they always say, keep your fork. And when they say, keep your fork, I know that something really good's still coming. And as people come by my casket and they look in there, they're going to go, Reverend Jim, I understand Aunt Hattie's Bible. She was very religious, but why the fork? I want you to look him in the eye and say, that's because Aunt Hattie knew the best was still yet to come. And for all of you at Party Light, the best is still yet to come.
Jack Canfield, America's Success Coach, taking you from where you are to where you want to be. For more information about how to make your next meeting a total success, contact the provider of this video.